There are truths so powerful, they can shift your reality forever. But once you stumble upon them, you're faced with a choice: speak and risk everything, or stay silent and master everything. This book is not for the weak. It's for those who are ready to see the unseen, feel the unspoken, and move through life with quiet strength. Introduction. The book opens by presenting a deep, almost mystical truth that in this world, there are certain secrets, certain rare insights that have the power to completely transform your life, your perception, and your reality. But the moment you uncover one of these powerful truths, you are instantly faced with a spiritual and psychological test. The test is not about understanding the secret intellectually. It's about whether or not you can contain it, hold it within you without needing to broadcast it, explain it, or seek validation for knowing it. The introduction warns the reader that this type of knowledge does not want to be shared with the masses. It's not for the crowd. It's not for conversation. It's for personal evolution. Speaking it dilutes it. Sharing it attracts resistance, envy, mockery, or even destruction, because most people are not ready to hear what would shatter their illusions. So, the book's opening strikes a chord of responsibility. Once you come into contact with this kind of rare knowledge, you must protect it like treasure. You must move differently, speak less, and stop trying to convince people of anything. The more powerful the insight, the quieter you must become. The book implies that the truly wise ones throughout history, those who rose beyond average life, shared this trait: discretion. Not because they were afraid, but because they understood the law of energy. Every time you speak something sacred, you leak energy. Every time you reveal your next move or deepest realization, you weaken your edge. So the introduction draws a sharp line between those who chase attention and those who seek real mastery. It tells the reader that silence isn't passive, it's a form of dominance, a form of self-control that very few ever attain. It forces the reader to reframe their relationship with communication, ego, and the need to be understood. And more than that, it sets up the entire tone of the book. This isn't a typical self-help book that pumps you up with motivation and feel-good lines. This is a mental weapon, a shift in your inner world, a code of conduct for those who want to move through life like shadow warriors, unseen, untouched, and always 10 steps ahead. The introduction does not try to sell the reader anything, it challenges them. It makes it clear that not everyone deserves this knowledge, and not everyone will even survive it. Because truth can be blinding. And if you're not mentally disciplined enough to hold it in silence, you might self-destruct trying to use it. That's why the title itself is a command. Once you know this secret, keep your mouth shut. The introduction is a kind of initiation, a door opening into a new way of being, where strength is quiet, wisdom is hidden, and real power speaks only through results. Chapter 1. The Power of Silence. This chapter opens with a stark realization that in a world overflowing with opinions, noise, arguments, validation-seeking, and digital chatter, those who remain silent gain a mysterious form of dominance over their environment and the people in it. It explains that silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's the presence of composure, observation, and hidden strength. The chapter breaks down how human psychology reacts to silence. Most people fear it because it forces introspection and discomfort. It removes the masks people hide behind. When you don't fill every gap with words, others begin projecting their own assumptions, which gives you psychological leverage. You allow people to reveal themselves while you stay unreadable. It explains how silence can be weaponized in conversations. During arguments, your silence forces the other person to confront themselves. During negotiations, it creates tension that makes others speak more than they should, often giving you the upper hand. Silence in this chapter is described as a shield that protects your energy from being drained by meaningless engagement, as well as a filter that allows only what matters to reach your inner space. It takes this deeper by discussing how silence is a tool of alchemy. It converts raw emotions into insight, raw thoughts into clarity, and chaos into calm. When you speak, you're giving away direction to your mind. When you're silent, you're drawing inward, pulling power into yourself like a coiled spring. The chapter also exposes how speaking is often rooted in ego. People talk to prove, to impress, to defend, to seek applause, to fill space because silence requires no validation. Silence is not weakness, it's restraint, and restraint is a sign of power. The chapter explains how the most powerful people in history, in business, warfare, spiritual leadership, and social influence, used silence as their dominant form of communication, not because they lacked knowledge, but because they didn't need to advertise it. In fact, it goes further to say that silence is the language of the wise and the emotionally disciplined. When others are quick to speak and react, the silent one becomes the observer, the one who sees the full picture, the hidden patterns, the unspoken motives. It even breaks down how silence is essential for sharpening intuition. When the noise of the world fades, your inner voice becomes clearer. And this voice, if nurtured in silence, leads to decisions that are aligned with your highest self, not with external pressures. The chapter shows how mastering silence puts you into what can be described as a meditative state of power. Calm on the outside, calculating on the inside, impossible to read, and even harder to manipulate. In moments of tension, your silence will feel like thunder to others, because they won't know what you're thinking, what you'll do next, or if they've lost control. This makes silence not only a personal strength, but also a strategic advantage in any arena: relationships, leadership, negotiation, or confrontation. By the end of this chapter, the message is clear. Silence isn't passive. It is the most powerful form of communication because it demands more from others than words ever could. It forces the world to lean in, to guess, to reflect, while you maintain your grip on your emotions, your moves, and your destiny. This isn't just about staying quiet. It's about becoming untouchable through the mastery of your voice, your mind, and your energy. Chapter 2: The Secret That Changes Everything. Chapter 2 unearths a rare psychological and spiritual truth so powerful that once it settles into your awareness, it severs the strings that have silently controlled your thoughts, emotions, and actions for your entire life. And that truth is this: most of what people say, do, or project has nothing to do with you. It is a reflection of their own mind, their unresolved pain, hidden fears, ego wounds, and subconscious programming. The chapter slowly pulls back the curtain on how most of the world operates on autopilot: human behavior, interactions, decisions, reactions, all driven by internal chaos that individuals haven't even acknowledged within themselves. When you understand this, truly understand it, your internal reaction system begins to dissolve. You stop interpreting criticism as a threat, praise as a drug, rejection as a failure, or approval as a goal. You see it all as noise, external data from unconscious minds playing out predictable roles. And in that stillness, that moment of complete detachment, you become free. The chapter goes deep into how this new lens changes your emotional chemistry. You no longer flinch when someone disrespects you, because you recognize it's not a reflection of your worth, but a signal of their disordered inner world. You don't chase attention because you realize validation is manipulation wrapped in a compliment. You stop needing to be liked because you realize being liked often means being controlled. The secret is not a thing, but a shift, a permanent state of awareness that detaches you from the world's emotional games and puts you in the role of observer rather than participant. You learn to see emotional patterns in people. The overtalkers are insecure, the angry are afraid, the loud are overcompensating, the silent are calculating. And suddenly, you have vision others do not. You begin to feel the energy behind words, who's coming from love, who's acting out fear, who's manipulating through flattery or guilt. This doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you powerful, because you no longer waste energy reacting. You conserve it, you protect it, and you use it to build, to move in silence, to win where others get trapped. The chapter shows how this awareness gives you something most people never have: emotional freedom. You stop playing defense. You don't try to fix broken people, and you don't try to explain your value. You don't beg for understanding because you understand yourself. You move with calm dominance, even in chaos, because the chaos is no longer yours to carry. It belongs to the unawakened. The chapter illustrates how this secret leads to a life where silence becomes your power, your actions become sharp, your time becomes sacred, and your presence becomes magnetic, not because you are louder, but because you carry clarity in a world addicted to confusion. It teaches that those who grasp this secret stop reacting and start responding, not emotionally, but energetically, choosing their battles, conserving their strength, and playing the long game with almost surgical precision. This chapter doesn't just inform you, it transforms you, shifting your position from a player inside the game to the person who sees the game board from above, moving pieces in silence, untouched by the noise, unbothered by the opinions, and completely rooted in inner sovereignty. Once this secret becomes your foundation, everything changes, not because the world changed, but because you finally stopped being ruled by it. Chapter 3: Why People Won't Understand. Chapter 3 delivers a soul-level realization that pierces through the illusions we often carry about relationships, acceptance, and connection. It unveils with intense clarity that people won't understand you, not because they don't want to, but because they're not capable of seeing you beyond the lens of their own limitations. And this is one of the most painful yet liberating truths you will ever encounter. The chapter takes you on a deep psychological and emotional excavation of what it really means to grow beyond your environment. It reveals that the moment you begin to rise, when you start healing, creating boundaries, choosing silence, seeking purpose, and walking away from dysfunction, you instantly start reflecting back to others the choices they have avoided, the healing they have denied, and the truths they have suppressed. And instead of being celebrated, you become a mirror they don't want to face. This chapter shows how people unconsciously attach you to the version of yourself they are most comfortable with, the one who didn't have boundaries, who used to overgive, who tolerated disrespect, who played small for their comfort. And when you evolve beyond that role, their ego feels abandoned or attacked, even if you've done nothing but grow. You learn that understanding has nothing to do with how clearly you speak or how kind you are. It's about energetic alignment. If someone is living in fear-based thinking, self-doubt, emotional projection, or victim consciousness, they simply cannot understand someone who is grounded in self-responsibility, emotional intelligence, and inner peace. The chapter breaks down how people's reactions to your growth often sound like advice, concern, or even love, but are actually disguised resistance because they don't want to see you rise while they stay the same. You'll hear things like, "You've changed, you're too intense, you're not fun anymore, you're selfish now," not because you're wrong, but because you've stopped living by their unspoken rules. The more you evolve, the less relatable you become to the version of the world you once fit into. The chapter also delves into how this misunderstanding isn't just about others, it becomes a spiritual initiation for you. It forces you to ask, are you strong enough to be misunderstood? Are you disciplined enough to not explain your path? Are you wise enough to stay grounded in truth, even when you're surrounded by doubt? It teaches that trying to be understood by people who are addicted to comfort, drama, or illusion is like explaining the sky to someone who lives underground. The emotional burden of constantly translating your truth into words they can digest only keeps you tied to a frequency you've outgrown. This chapter empowers you to let go of seeking validation, approval, or emotional rescue. It encourages you to master the art of walking alone with full confidence that your alignment is more valuable than their acceptance. It reveals that most people are not rejecting you, they're rejecting the reflection of their own inner neglect, and your job is not to dim your light to protect their shadows. Instead, your job is to keep rising with grace, knowing that your real tribe, your real alignment, will find you in silence, not in explanation. The chapter concludes by showing that true peace comes not when you're finally understood, but when you no longer need to be. That's when you become untouchable, sovereign, and rooted in a power that transcends language, because real ones don't need to hear your story to feel your frequency. Chapter 4. Speak less, when more. Chapter 4. Speak less, when more, offers a profound exploration into the subtle art of strategic communication, revealing that speaking less is not only a sign of strength, but the most powerful form of influence in any situation. It goes deep into human psychology, showing that words, when used too freely, can often backfire. They reveal your emotional state, expose your insecurities, or give away your plans before they're fully formed. The chapter elaborates on how those who speak too much are often doing so from a place of anxiety, seeking reassurance, or filling silence because they feel the need to validate their worth through constant verbal output. This tendency, while seemingly harmless, weakens your position in any situation by giving away too much and offering others the chance to manipulate your words against you. By speaking less, you inherently increase the value of what you say, making each word more impactful, more considered, and more authoritative. The chapter emphasizes that when you choose your words wisely and sparingly, you create an aura of mystery and intrigue that draws others in, making them more likely to listen, analyze, and respect your opinion. This mysterious silence allows others to reveal more than they intend, often exposing their true intentions, weaknesses, or insecurities. Meanwhile, you remain calm, composed, and in control of the direction of the conversation, able to make decisions and strategic moves with far greater clarity. The concept of speaking less is also closely tied to emotional control and discipline. The chapter underscores how people who speak too much often let their emotions dictate their words, reacting impulsively rather than responding with measured thought. By learning to control your speech, you also master your emotions, as speaking less forces you to pause, think, and filter out unnecessary thoughts. This results in conversations and decisions that are more thoughtful, deliberate, and less likely to cause regret or conflict. Furthermore, the chapter explains that when you speak less, you don't waste your energy on trivial exchanges or unnecessary explanations. You avoid the trap of over-explaining yourself to others in an attempt to gain approval or prove your point. Instead, you create a space where your silence can serve as an expression of confidence and wisdom. It's in that silence that others start to pay more attention to you, listening carefully to the few words you choose to speak, because they recognize that you are someone who doesn't need to fill the air with chatter to be heard. The chapter teaches that speaking less is about being strategic, holding back just enough so that when you do speak, your words carry far more weight and your presence commands more respect. Another powerful layer of this concept is how speaking less creates room for others to talk, revealing more about their thoughts, needs, and desires than they might have intended. When you remain silent or speak minimally, you give others the opportunity to fill the gaps with their own words. In doing so, they expose their true motives, insecurities, and emotional states, which provides you with critical information about how to maneuver in the situation. By not speaking unnecessarily, you take on the role of a listener, someone who is observing, analyzing, and collecting data, rather than being the one who's performing or reacting. The chapter highlights how this skill is especially useful in high-stakes environments, such as negotiations or leadership roles, where speaking too much can weaken your position. By speaking less, you gain the advantage of control and patience. You aren't rushing to reveal your hand, but letting others reveal theirs. This tactic puts you in a position of power, because when others have already shared too much, it becomes easier for you to make informed, calculated decisions. The idea of speaking less also ties into the concept of timing. The chapter explains that mastering when to speak and when to remain silent is an art form in itself. Silence, when used effectively, can create a space where others feel compelled to fill the void with their own thoughts, making them more vulnerable to influence. At the same time, by not speaking unnecessarily, you avoid saying things you might regret later, preserving your emotional integrity and strategic position. This chapter explores how silence can act as a psychological tool, creating anticipation, tension, and curiosity, which draws people toward you. It's the power of restraint. When you control your words, you make others hang on to them, giving you the upper hand in almost any situation. This can be particularly powerful in social dynamics or when building influence, because people will naturally begin to view you as someone who knows when to speak and when to remain calm, measured, and in control. The chapter goes deeper still, discussing how speaking less helps you avoid being caught in the web of unnecessary conflict and emotional exhaustion. When you over-explain or engage in unnecessary conversations, you give energy to situations that don't need it, draining your emotional reserves and possibly causing friction. By speaking less, you conserve your energy, protecting your peace and your mental clarity. The chapter also makes the case that the ability to hold your tongue is a reflection of self-respect and self-awareness. It shows that people who constantly feel the need to talk or seek attention may be doing so because they lack self-assurance. In contrast, when you speak less, you exhibit an unshakable confidence that you don't need to prove anything to anyone, and that alone can elevate your status in any group or social dynamic. People gravitate toward those who appear steady and grounded, not those who constantly seek validation through words. The chapter asserts that in mastering this art of speaking less, you learn to navigate life with greater elegance, power, and influence, moving through situations with precision and intent, and without giving away your emotional or strategic position. Finally, the chapter emphasizes that speaking less is not just about speech, it's about creating a life where your actions, energy, and presence speak for themselves. By reducing verbal output, you increase the focus on your actions, and it's through these actions that you build real influence, respect, and authority. Words can mislead, but actions are irrefutable. Speaking less allows you to prioritize the depth of your actions over the noise of words, creating an aura of quiet strength that others will respect and seek. In essence, this chapter teaches that by speaking less, you amplify your impact, your presence, and your influence, transforming how others perceive you, and, more importantly, how you perceive yourself in the grand game of life. Chapter 5. The Enemy of Silence, the Ego. Chapter 5 unveils the ego as the primary enemy of true silence, a force so deeply ingrained in human nature that it often operates without our conscious awareness. The ego, with its relentless hunger for validation, approval, and recognition, is shown to be the driving force behind the need to fill every silence with noise, whether through words, actions, or even thoughts. The chapter reveals that the ego thrives on external affirmation, constantly pushing us to speak, perform, and assert ourselves in ways that reinforce its fragile sense of self-worth. This need to be seen and heard is the ego's survival mechanism, as it fears being overlooked or forgotten, believing that its existence is only validated through recognition. The ego is an insidious force because, while it may appear to be a natural part of the human experience, it operates from a place of fear, insecurity, and deep-rooted anxiety about its own impermanence. It resists silence because silence offers the potential for introspection, for self-awareness, and for a confrontation with the truth of who we really are beneath all the external layers and distractions. The chapter goes on to explain that the ego's greatest enemy is peace, because peace allows you to stop chasing external validation and invites you to sit with your own truth, something the ego is desperate. Silence forces you to come face to face with your own thoughts, feelings, and subconscious patterns, and it's in these moments that the ego feels most vulnerable. When you choose silence, you deny the ego the constant stimulation it craves to stay alive. The chapter illustrates that the ego operates in a cycle of noise and reaction. It compels you to speak when you don't need to defend yourself when you haven't been attacked, and to share your thoughts even when they serve no greater purpose than to fill the empty space. The more you give into this urge, the more you feed the ego's need for attention, and the less room there is for your true self to emerge. Every time you speak out of ego, you strengthen its grip on your life, keeping you trapped in a perpetual loop of external noise that drowns out your inner wisdom. The chapter then explores how the ego creates an identity based on external factors: your possessions, your appearance, your accomplishments, and how others perceive you. This false sense of self makes you feel as though you need to constantly prove your worth to the world, even though this validation is fleeting and ultimately hollow. The chapter goes deeper into how this relentless need for recognition drains your energy, leaving you feeling disconnected from your true essence. The ego creates a false narrative in your mind that tells you that without external validation, you are nothing, that your worth is tied to what others think of you. This belief keeps you trapped in a state of constant seeking, constantly striving for more attention, approval, and acknowledgement, all of which keep you away from your true, unshakable core. The chapter reveals that the more you identify with the ego, the more you become disconnected from your own authenticity, as you are too focused on playing a role for others rather than embracing your real self. This chapter also emphasizes that the ego's presence in your life manifests in the need to explain, justify, and over-explain yourself. When your ego feels threatened, whether by criticism, misunderstanding, or discomfort, it pushes you to speak in order to protect itself. The ego convinces you that if you don't defend yourself, you will lose control or be dismissed. This reactive behavior creates a pattern where you are constantly trying to make yourself understood, even at the expense of your own peace. The chapter explains how, by over-explaining, you dilute your own message and reinforce the ego's need for attention, approval, and validation. The more you feed the ego's demand to be heard, the less power your silence has, and the more vulnerable you become to external influences. In contrast, the chapter teaches that true power lies in the ability to resist the ego's pull for constant validation, which is achieved through silence. Silence, in this context, is not simply the absence of sound. It is the active choice to create space between your thoughts, your impulses, and your actions. The more you cultivate the ability to be silent, the more you master the art of detachment from the ego's need to react. Silence becomes your tool for inner strength, as it allows you to observe, reflect, and center yourself before responding to the world. By mastering silence, you no longer feel the need to speak for the sake of being heard. You speak only when necessary, and when you do, your words carry far more weight and meaning. This is the paradox. By choosing silence, you gain control over your words, your actions, and ultimately, your life. The chapter also discusses the ego's tendency to trap you in reactive emotional states, like anger, frustration, and defensiveness, which keep you constantly entangled in external conflicts and distractions. The ego feeds on these emotional outbursts, as they give it a sense of purpose and validation. But by refusing to engage with these impulses and choosing silence instead, you starve the ego of its energy, cutting off its power to control your emotions. Silence becomes a form of resistance against the ego's chaos, providing you with the mental clarity and emotional stability to make decisions that are aligned with your true self, rather than reacting from a place of fear, insecurity, or pride. As the chapter unfolds, it explains how the ego's grip on you can only be loosened by embracing silence as a practice, a daily commitment to not reacting, not defending, and not seeking approval from others. The more you practice silence, the more you begin to recognize when the ego is influencing your thoughts, words, and actions, and the more you can detach from it. Silence, then, is the antidote to the ego's toxicity, a tool that empowers you to move through life with more intention, peace, and clarity. It's in this silence that you reconnect with your authentic self, the version of you that is not defined by external validation or the need for approval, but by your own inner wisdom and strength. The chapter concludes by affirming that the greatest freedom comes when you can silence the ego, stop chasing external validation, and simply exist as you are whole, complete, and at peace with yourself. Chapter 6. Protect your energy field. Chapter 6 delves deeply into the concept of protecting your energy field, exploring how this invisible force governs not only your physical well-being, but also your emotional and mental states. It starts by explaining that every individual possesses an energy field, a combination of aura, thoughts, emotions, and energy vibrations that extends beyond the physical body. This field is constantly interacting with the world around you, absorbing and emitting energy with every encounter, every interaction, and every thought. The chapter stresses that your energy is a precious resource, and just as you would protect your physical health from harmful substances, you must also protect your energy from being drained or corrupted by negative influences. It outlines how external forces such as toxic people, overwhelming environments, or negative emotions can infiltrate your energy field, causing disruptions that manifest as stress, exhaustion, confusion, or even illness. These forces often enter your energy field without you realizing it, and before you know it, your sense of calm, clarity, and well-being is compromised. The chapter explains that understanding the dynamics of your energy field is the first step toward protecting it. By becoming more aware of the subtle shifts in your energy, such as feeling depleted after interacting with certain people or environments, you can begin to take conscious steps to shield yourself from harm. The chapter goes on to emphasize the importance of setting boundaries in both your physical and emotional space to protect your energy field. It encourages you to recognize when your energy is being manipulated or drained by others, whether through emotional blackmail, toxic positivity, or a constant demand for attention and approval. By identifying these energy-draining behaviors, you can learn to distance yourself from them, either by limiting your exposure to these individuals or by asserting boundaries that preserve your inner peace. The chapter highlights that people with unresolved emotional issues, such as anger, jealousy, or fear, can unknowingly project their negativity onto you, which, if unprotected, can affect your mood and outlook. It advises you to stay alert to the emotional climates you enter, noting that some people can unconsciously project their fears and anxieties onto you, draining your emotional reserves. The chapter teaches you how to protect yourself by emotionally detaching from these projections and refraining from absorbing their negative energy. One key technique mentioned is learning to create an energetic shield around yourself, which acts as a protective barrier against unwanted influences. This can be done through mental practices such as visualizing a bubble of light surrounding you, strengthening your sense of inner peace, and reminding yourself that others' energy is not your responsibility. Furthermore, the chapter discusses how negative environments, whether social, work-related, or even virtual, can slowly chip away at your energy if you are not vigilant. It describes how prolonged exposure to environments that are emotionally charged, chaotic, or filled with gossip and criticism can drain your vitality over time. People who are constantly complaining, arguing, or seeking drama can subtly pull you into their emotional vortex, causing you to lose focus and energy. The chapter suggests that in these situations, it's essential to learn how to create mental and emotional distance, such as by not engaging in conversations that are rooted in negativity, by removing yourself from toxic settings, or by practicing mindfulness to stay grounded amid external chaos. Protecting your energy field, according to the chapter, is about being highly selective about where you spend your time, what media you consume, and who you interact with. It emphasizes the importance of being deliberate about the energy you invite into your life. In this way, you actively cultivate environments and relationships that promote your personal growth, well-being, and inner harmony, rather than environments that drain your emotional resources or put your mental peace at risk. The chapter also covers self-care practices that play a crucial role in strengthening and protecting your energy field. It stresses the importance of taking care of your physical body through exercise, rest, and proper nutrition, as your physical state is directly linked to the health of your energy field. When your body is weak or fatigued, your energy field becomes more susceptible to external influences. Therefore, regular exercise, good sleep, and a balanced diet are foundational for maintaining a strong energy field. Meditation and mindfulness practices are also highlighted as powerful tools to maintain emotional and mental balance. These practices allow you to cultivate a deep sense of inner peace, which acts as an impenetrable shield against external disturbances. The chapter advocates for a daily practice of grounding yourself, whether through meditation, breathing exercises, or simply spending time in nature, to ensure that your energy remains high and stable. The idea is that by nurturing your own energy through these practices, you can create a buffer zone where you remain centered, even when the outside world feels chaotic or draining. In addition to individual practices, the chapter explains that protecting your energy also requires a mindset shift. It teaches that you must view your energy as sacred, something that you are responsible for protecting and preserving. By adopting the belief that your energy is valuable and finite, you begin to recognize when it is being compromised and take proactive steps to guard it. This shift in mindset allows you to stop engaging in unnecessary drama, stop people-pleasing, and stop absorbing other people's problems. It encourages you to develop the discernment to know when to say no, when to set boundaries, and when to walk away from situations that are not serving your highest good. The chapter reveals that the energy you protect is not just about avoiding negativity, but also about cultivating a space where your own energy can thrive. It teaches you how to become more conscious of the thoughts you entertain, the emotions you allow to dominate your mind, and the environments you allow yourself to be in. Each of these factors plays a significant role in the strength of your energy field. The chapter also explores the importance of surrounding yourself with positive influences, as the energy of those around you can either uplift or drain you. It encourages you to seek out relationships and communities that support your growth, inspire positivity, and share your values. The chapter stresses that by aligning yourself with people who have high vibrations and healthy energy, you naturally amplify your own energy field, making it stronger and more resilient. Conversely, when you spend time with people who are emotionally toxic, negative, or constantly draining, your energy field becomes compromised, leaving you vulnerable to emotional burnout. Therefore, creating a positive, supportive network of people is essential for maintaining a healthy energy balance. The chapter suggests that by choosing your relationships carefully, you can build a circle of support that nourishes your energy and helps you stay grounded in your purpose. One of the more powerful insights the chapter provides is the notion that protecting your energy field is not about isolating yourself from the world or avoiding uncomfortable situations. It is about staying centered no matter the external circumstances. It teaches that your ability to maintain your inner peace in the face of external chaos is the true measure of your strength. By remaining grounded, calm, and clear, even in the presence of negativity or conflict, you can preserve your energy while still engaging with the world around you. The chapter also acknowledges that this is a practice that requires ongoing effort. Just as you protect your physical health through hygiene, exercise, and nutrition, so too must you protect your energy field through mindfulness, self-awareness, and boundary setting. Over time, as you continue to practice these techniques, you will notice an increased sense of resilience, inner strength, and emotional stability. Finally, the chapter emphasizes that by actively protecting your energy field, you are not just preserving your own peace and well-being, but also setting an example for others. When you live with awareness of your energy, others around you will begin to mirror your behavior, learning to protect their own energy fields as well. This ripple effect creates a stronger, more conscious collective, where people are more mindful of their impact on each other's energy and well-being. By adopting the practice of protecting your energy, you not only transform your own life, but contribute to a larger movement of individuals who are committed to cultivating positive, high-vibrational spaces for themselves and those around them. The chapter concludes by reinforcing the idea that energy protection is not a one-time task, but a lifelong practice that empowers you to live with clarity, vitality, and purpose. Chapter 7. Move in silence, strike in power. Chapter 7 dives deeply into the concept of moving in silence and striking with power, highlighting how this approach leads to greater success and impact. It opens by challenging the modern tendency to announce plans, intentions, or aspirations prematurely, a behavior often rooted in a desire for validation and recognition. People often speak about what they are going to do or share their goals to elicit praise, approval, or attention, which the chapter argues can weaken their true power. The act of speaking before acting creates a premature sense of accomplishment, tricking the mind into believing that success has already been achieved, which can lead to complacency and a decrease in motivation. The chapter asserts that when you keep your intentions to yourself, you remain focused and committed, undistracted by the need for external validation or praise. Moving in silence is portrayed as an act of self-discipline and mental fortitude, where the emphasis is placed on internal progress rather than external acknowledgement. The chapter goes on to explain that by keeping your goals private and your actions quiet, you avoid attracting unnecessary attention. When you broadcast your plans to others, you risk inviting criticism, skepticism, or even sabotage from those who may not understand your vision or who may feel threatened by your ambition. People's judgments can influence your decision-making and distract you from your path, which is why operating in silence allows you to protect your focus and avoid external interference. Silence creates a space where you can work without fear of judgment, distraction, or negative energy from others. The chapter also emphasizes that people often underestimate the value of silence and discretion, assuming that the loudest voices or most public displays of effort are the ones that lead to success. However, the chapter argues that those who remain silent, working diligently behind the scenes, often make the most substantial progress, as they are not distracted by the noise around them. Their work speaks for itself when the time is right, and the impact they create is far more significant than any announcement of their intentions. Another crucial point made in the chapter is that silence allows you to maintain control over your energy and resources. Talking about your plans, especially before you've started working on them, can drain your energy as you're expending mental and emotional resources on external conversations rather than on actual progress. By staying silent about your plans, you conserve your energy, which allows you to direct it fully toward executing your goals. This approach fosters a sense of clarity and purpose, as you are not sidetracked by distractions or external opinions. The chapter also emphasizes that silence protects your energy from being siphoned off by people who might not understand your vision or who may criticize you, either intentionally or unknowingly. When you don't feel the need to explain yourself or justify your actions to others, you preserve your emotional and mental strength, allowing you to channel it toward meaningful work. The idea of striking with power is introduced as the result of this silent, focused effort. The chapter illustrates that when you work without revealing your plans, you are able to build momentum and master your craft, making each move more calculated and impactful. When the time comes to reveal your progress or take action, it has more weight, as it is not diluted by constant talking, planning, or seeking approval. Striking in power means acting with precision, confidence, and impact, and this power is cultivated through quiet work, discipline, and patience. Silence enables you to work uninterrupted, without the interference of outside expectations or distractions. It also allows you to assess the situation thoroughly and make decisions that align with your goals without being clouded by the opinions of others. The chapter stresses that those who move in silence have the advantage of unpredictability, which makes their actions more effective. People who are overly vocal about their intentions often give others the opportunity to anticipate their next moves, while those who remain silent keep their opponents or competitors off balance, allowing them to strike when least expected. The chapter also delves into the psychological aspect of silence, suggesting that it cultivates inner strength and emotional stability. When you operate silently, you are not driven by the need for external validation or instant feedback. Instead, you develop a strong sense of internal confidence that comes from knowing that your work will eventually speak for itself. This mental strength is crucial for overcoming obstacles and staying on course, especially when facing adversity or when others doubt your vision. The chapter suggests that silence fosters patience, which is essential for success. Many people are in a rush to announce their plans or make quick progress, but true success often comes from slow, deliberate effort over time. By moving in silence, you cultivate the patience required to build something substantial, knowing that your efforts will yield results in their own time. This long-term perspective is empowering, as it frees you from the pressure of immediate results or the desire to seek constant external approval. The chapter also explores how silence helps you sharpen your focus and decision-making. By removing the noise and distractions from the outside world, you create an environment where your attention can be entirely dedicated to your goals. This deep focus allows you to make decisions with clarity, and every move you make is strategic and intentional. You avoid impulsive decisions that come from external pressure, and instead, your actions are rooted in your own values and vision. By being silent about your plans, you also reduce the risk of overextending yourself or making promises you can't keep. The chapter illustrates that speaking too soon can lead to overcommitment, where you promise more than you can deliver, often driven by the desire to be seen as successful or capable. Silence, on the other hand, allows you to stay grounded, ensuring that your actions are aligned with what you can realistically achieve. In addition, the chapter stresses the importance of humility and integrity in the process of moving in silence. It teaches that speaking less and doing more cultivates a sense of humility, as you are not driven by the desire to boast or seek recognition. Instead, your work becomes its own validation. This approach builds integrity, as your actions become the measure of your character rather than the words you speak. The chapter reveals that people who constantly talk about what they are going to do often miss the opportunity to prove themselves through their actions. Humility in silence enables you to demonstrate your value without needing to assert it verbally, and it builds respect from others who recognize that you are not someone who seeks validation, but someone who is dedicated to achieving results. Furthermore, the chapter outlines how moving in silence fosters resilience and emotional control. By not speaking prematurely, you are less likely to be swayed by praise or criticism. This emotional stability allows you to handle setbacks with grace, remain unfazed by obstacles, and continue on your path with unwavering determination. The chapter teaches that emotional control is one of the key elements in creating lasting success. By staying silent, you develop the ability to remain calm under pressure, assess situations without reacting impulsively, and make decisions that lead to long-term growth and achievement. Finally, the chapter emphasizes that moving in silence and striking in power is not about avoiding engagement with the world. Rather, it's about engaging with the world on your own terms. It teaches that when you move in silence, you are not withdrawing from life or hiding from challenges. You are preparing yourself for success by creating a strong foundation of focus, discipline, and quiet action. When the time comes to act, your strike is powerful, decisive, and impactful, and the world will recognize your efforts not because of the noise you made, but because of the results you produced. Conclusion. The conclusion of the book emphasizes that the essence of true power lies in mastering the art of silence and discretion, not in seeking external validation or loudly announcing one's intentions. It draws attention to the fact that many individuals, driven by ego, insecurity, or the need for approval, often make the mistake of talking about their goals and plans in advance, which can ultimately undermine their ability to follow through. By engaging in constant verbalizing of their aspirations, they diminish the potency of their actions, turning their energy into a diluted force rather than a focused one. In contrast, those who learn to move in silence are able to work without interference, distractions, or outside judgment, creating an environment in which their focus remains sharp and undisturbed. The conclusion conveys that silence doesn't mean passivity or avoidance of action. It's about engaging with life and your purpose in a way that prioritizes inner strength, clarity, and intentional movement. It encourages readers to develop an understanding that when they work quietly, away from the noise of the world, their energy becomes more concentrated, their efforts more effective, and their success more sustainable. In exploring silence as a tool for power, the conclusion stresses the importance of protecting one's energy field from external influences. By staying silent about one's intentions, a person can safeguard their energy from being drained by other people's negativity, skepticism, or undue pressure. This internal protection fosters a stronger sense of clarity, focus, and confidence, which allows a person to navigate the complexities of life without being swayed by the opinions or expectations of others. The chapter highlights that silence enables a person to filter out unnecessary distractions, both internal and external, which might otherwise cloud their judgment or distract them from their true purpose. The notion of protecting one's energy is further linked to maintaining a strong sense of self-worth and belief in one's capabilities. When you operate from a place of silence and discipline, you learn to trust in your own abilities and the process without needing constant external affirmation. The power of silence, in this sense, becomes a tool for self-empowerment, enabling individuals to move through life with a sense of direction and purpose, undistracted by the noise and chaos that often surrounds them. Additionally, the conclusion highlights that silence offers a space for deep introspection and personal growth. It allows individuals to connect with their true selves, removing the clutter of external opinions and societal pressures, which often lead to confusion or misdirection. In silence, you are able to hear your inner voice more clearly, which helps you make decisions that are aligned with your values and long-term goals, rather than being swayed by fleeting desires or immediate reactions. This reflective space also provides the opportunity for emotional growth and resilience, as you learn to cope with challenges and setbacks in a manner that is rooted in calmness and composure. Rather than reacting impulsively or allowing external circumstances to dictate your responses, silence cultivates the inner strength to act from a place of control and deliberate action. The conclusion underscores that in this reflective state, a person can cultivate a deeper understanding of their own emotions, desires, and motivations, which is essential for achieving long-term success and fulfillment. The conclusion also reiterates the idea that silence is an essential tool for personal and professional success. It is not about avoiding action, but about knowing when to act and when to hold back, making each step more impactful. It encourages readers to adopt a mindset of quiet confidence, where the focus is placed on doing the work rather than talking about it. This approach is described as a way to avoid the pitfalls of self-doubt and distractions that come with seeking validation from others. By operating in silence, one can build a sense of momentum that is free from the anxiety or second-guessing that often accompanies public declarations of intent. The conclusion also stresses the importance of patience in this process. It explains that while moving in silence may not yield immediate rewards or recognition, the results are more profound and long-lasting because they are grounded in consistent, focused effort rather than superficial displays of progress. Furthermore, the conclusion calls attention to the power of timing and strategic action. The book encourages readers to stay disciplined and focused, knowing that success comes not from rushing to achieve, but from strategically choosing the right moment to act. When you've built the foundation quietly and persistently, your actions will carry more weight, and your impact will be felt more deeply. The chapter stresses that those who strike when the time is right, after having prepared themselves in silence, are the ones who make the greatest impact. They are not rushed, they are not pressured by others' expectations, and they are not distracted by the need to prove themselves. Their actions speak louder than words, and when they do finally make their move, it is with clarity, precision, and power. This idea of strategic timing is central to the conclusion, which emphasizes that success is not about being the loudest or the most visible, but about being able to act with authority when the moment calls for it. In a broader sense, the conclusion also highlights how silence and discipline can help individuals develop a more sustainable approach to life and success. The journey toward mastery, whether in personal development, career, or relationships, is rarely immediate. It requires a deep commitment to the process and an understanding that real progress is often made behind the scenes. The book encourages readers to focus on their own growth and development, quietly working toward their goals without getting caught up in the distractions of comparison or competition. Silence allows for this quiet, behind-the-scenes work, which eventually leads to significant achievements that are more authentic and impactful than those achieved through noise and showmanship. In the final part of the conclusion, the book stresses the importance of consistency. It asserts that true power comes from consistency in action and intention, even when no one is watching. The chapter explains that by maintaining a consistent focus on your goals and staying true to your path, regardless of external circumstances, you create the conditions for lasting success. Silence supports this consistency by shielding you from distractions, allowing you to remain committed to your purpose over the long haul. It suggests that the secret to achieving true success lies not in sporadic bursts of effort or public declarations, but in the quiet, unwavering discipline that builds over time. The chapter encourages readers to trust in this process, knowing that even though others may not see the fruits of their labor immediately, the results will speak for themselves in due time. Ultimately, the conclusion reinforces the central tenet of the book. Silence is a powerful tool for both personal and professional growth. It helps individuals conserve their energy, protect their mental space, and build lasting success without the need for external approval or recognition. By moving quietly, acting decisively, and striking when the time is right, individuals can achieve greatness in a way that is not only effective, but also grounded in self-mastery and inner strength. The conclusion encourages readers to embrace silence as a tool of empowerment, one that allows them to shape their own narrative and make a profound impact on the world, not through loud words, but through powerful, deliberate actions.